So here it is, the final character on the $100 note. It is John Monash, the great general of World War I. Now, if you do enjoy this, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Let's find out more.
He is regarded, and rightly so, as one of the ablest generals of the Great War, and his leadership during that conflict earned his place as one of Australia's great national heroes, John Monash.
You know he's a great hero because they put him on the note. You know, this is exploring all the characters on the notes has really shown some of Australia's real great characters.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to a Great War bio special about John Monash. He was born June 27, 1865 in Melbourne, Australia.
Melbourne.
The eldest of three children, but the only boy, to Louis and Bertha Monash. His parents had only lived in Australia for 2 years when he was born, having both come from what was then in the Kingdom of Prussia, but is today part of Poland. They were Jewish, and though German was the family language, they spoke fluent English by the time John was born.
Wow. This may not have affected John Monash, but from that time scale to be able to then speak fluent English, that just shows that his parents had that determination to succeed in a new world. That's impressive in itself.
His German-Jewish descent would occasionally haunt Monash during his military career. John was considered an intelligent child and began learning the piano at the age of 5, same as me. After his basic education, he studied mathematics and engineering at the University of Melbourne. There, he had his first taste of the military, joining the militia, the university company of the 4th Battalion Victoria Rifles. After his mother died in 1885, he left university and got an engineering position on the construction of the Princess Bridge, his first engineering commission, and his work there got him some real plaudits. He then resumed his university studies. He took up...
Why did he pause university to then go to be an engineer? That's odd. Was it financially they just needed the money?
Debating and took a key role in school politics, learning much about organization and leadership. John also focused on the arts, regularly attending plays and even playing piano in a number of stage productions, though he gave up his piano career in 1891, the same year he was married to Hannah Ross, with whom he had one child, a daughter named Bertha. He was still in the militia, having joined a gun battery as a lieutenant in 1887, and at this point, it looked like he'd pursue a career as either engineer or soldier. He very much enjoyed military theory and also the status of his commission, though, much higher than that of an engineer. He lectured frequently on things like artillery, explosives, and practical mechanics.
It's coming across that he actually quite likes the power, and actually people like that. I like having some power and being able to, whether it's helping people or explain things to people because they look up to me due to a certain position that I hold. And he very much seems like that. If he's chosen the role as a, lieutenant at the time, but higher up in the military, he must like the power, and that's just the pleasure it gives him.
Both within the militia and in public, and his expository ability won recognition. By 1893, he was senior subaltern in the garrison artillery. He was promoted to captain in 1895. The next year, he sat the examinations for major and was promoted in 1897 with command of the North Melbourne Battery, which he was to retain for another 11 years. He did not volunteer for and was not asked to take part in the Boer Wars. Coastal artillerymen were irrelevant to that conflict, and men of his age with family and business responsibilities were hardly expected to go.
I don't know anything about the Boer War, so I'm sure my dad could tell me about it, as he used to be a Green Jacket and he likes all the military history, but I wouldn't be able to tell you where the Boer War was or anything like that, so this goes over my head a little bit.
Moreover, his support for the wars was less than wholehearted. As for his business, In the mid-1890s, he and a partner launched a private engineering practice, and around the turn of the century, he spent several years as an expert engineering witness all over Australia. His company failed in 1902, and after a few years of poverty, he joined a builder and an industrial chemist in forming a construction company. And the following year, the three joined a businessman in forming the South Australia Reinforced Concrete Company. He became a leader in the field. In 1908, Monash was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel and took command of the Victoria section of the Australian Intelligence Corps of the Militia. Military mapping was the main task, though there was also general intelligence gathering. In 1913, he was appointed to command the 13th Infantry Brigade, now a colonel.
It seems like what he's learning from his military career early on is setting him up to learn the tactical side of things. You know, being able to read what's going to happen and react to it. That's what it seems like he's learning through his job roles. And actually, probably being an engineer helps because you've got to be able to solve problems, right?
And his pamphlet, 100 Hints for Company Commanders, became an official document for basic training. When this war did break out, Monash worked as a censor for 4 weeks before taking command of the 4th Brigade of the Australian Imperial Force. Now, this was an Australia-wide brigade that did basic training before shipping out December 22nd, 1914. They arrived in Egypt at the end of January 1915 and would soon become part of Major General Sir Alexander Godley's New Zealand and Australia Division. This was the 2nd Division of the Australia and New Zealand Army Corps, ANZAC, under Lieutenant General Sir William Birdwood. Monash's brigade was in reserve at the Gallipoli landings, hitting the beaches April 26. You can learn all about the action at Gallipoli in our regular episodes and specials about that.
I don't know loads about Gallipoli, and the Anzac, the landings. I know it was a bit of a failure, basically because of Winston Churchill, setting them up to fail. Let's move on back to John Monash. Oh, and if you enjoy this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, all right?
Monash was promoted to Brigadier General at a time when rumors were circulating in Cairo, London, and Melbourne that he had been executed as a German spy and traitor. This was not the first time, nor the last, that such rumors reared their heads. Anyhow, Gallipoli had given Monash a pretty hardcore, hands-on education in modern war. Birdwood and Charles Bean, the war correspondent and Australia's official war historian, gave the impression that his performance had been mediocre, but his brigade did perform as well as any of the others. Back in Egypt in January 1916, he retrained his brigade, even while distressed by the news of his wife's operation for cancer. After 2 months in local defense east of the Suez Canal, his men were sent to France. In July, he was promoted to Major General, commanding the new 3rd Division. He trained them on the Salisbury Plain in England before returning to France as part of Herbert Plumer's 2nd Army. I've spoken of Plumer's skills before, so this was fairly fortunate for Monash. His first major battle was at Messines, Plumer's masterpiece, and a few months later at Bloodsende, Monash scored the greatest Australian victory yet. They spent the winter quietly and saw little serious action in the initial phases of the German spring offensives, the Kaiserschlacht. On June 1st, 1918, Monash was promoted to Lieutenant General and Corps Commander. This, in spite of a campaign against him by Bean. Bean did not like Monash's predilection for self-promotion, which really was a thing. But Bean also did...
Sorry, you can promote yourself? Surely that's not a thing. I think that's what he's saying. Monash was able to basically promote himself. Self-promotion. I can understand why you wouldn't like that.
Didn't like him because of his Jewish background, even writing in his diary. We do not want Australia represented by men mainly because of the ability, natural and inborn in Jews, to push themselves forward.
That's not a good thing to write, especially with hindsight now, looking back at it.
93 minutes of the Battle of Hamel on July 4th, 1918, have become renowned to many historians as the first truly modern battle with combined air, artillery, infantry, and armored operations. This battle really cemented Monash's reputation as a brilliant, large-scale commander and organizer. He also often gets a lot of credit for inspiring the opening battle of the series of offensives that led to the end of the war. It's uncertain to me how much of the idea for the Battle of Amiens actually came from him. It was certainly Sir Henry Rawlinson's overall plan. At any rate, the battle was classic Monash organization. And on August 11th, he and Canadian Corps Commander Arthur Currie were at the center of congratulations at a meeting of senior Allied leaders. The following day, he was knighted by King George V. Over the next 2 months, Monash's ability as commander in open battle was proven repeatedly in a series of victories, especially at Péronne. By the time of the breaking of the Hindenburg Line, a less certain matter, Monash commanded some 200,000 men, including Americans. Post-war, the efficient repatriation of 160,000 Australian soldiers within 8 months was another of his remarkable achievements, as he aggressively fought for and found ships for them, and compelled his government to alter its initial policy of slow repatriation. Monash did perhaps earn more than his fair share of fame.
I just think, what I would like to say is, so when you compare generals from the days before tanks, planes, big ships, not the old wooden ships, but modern ships, and thousands and thousands and thousands of troops, and it's a different, modern warfare is so different to swords and shields, and it's completely different being a general for those sort of battles, because you can almost see it. You can see it and you can visualize and you can use a map and you can move. Modern warfare is so different. And when I say modern warfare, I obviously mean the original state of modern warfare back then during World War I. There are so many more aspects to the situation when you're a general with the modern warfare, because you've got individual pockets of people. You've got air, land, sea. So straight away, he's clearly gained plaudits for great work. He was knighted by King George. He clearly had some talent. And I don't know to what extent the self-promotion took place, but he was clearly going up the ranks fairly quickly.
Being fortunate enough to command the force he did just when he took command. But his tasks in 1918 could hardly have been better done. He had a great administrative capacity, a strong intellect, and his forceful personality, and especially his articulateness, made him an excellent natural leader, winning the undying respect of virtually all of his peers. His command philosophy emphasized comprehensive planning above all. He believed in a fixed plan to the point that he would prefer to cancel an operation if it could not be completed as devised. His plans incorporated a series of battle conferences, which allowed him to work closely with his staff, not just to cover details, but to facilitate knowledge of what was expected right down the line.
I love the fact that he was clearly such an intelligent man. And I think this really does link to his engineering side, where you have to plan things. You have to have that almost mathematical mind, being able to visualize sort of different equations. And I relate that to war. The fact that he wanted everything to be so well planned, the details to the finest point. And actually he used his staff to help him and gain that knowledge as well, which is pretty good, because I'm sure there are plenty of higher ups that don't use anyone below them to help them. So that's quite an impressive trait, at least.
His command philosophy, though, placed management before leadership, and he rarely visited the front lines, commanding from his headquarters, leaving his trusted frontline commanders to conduct the actual fighting. He saw his role as setting the conditions for battlefield success through his intellectual approach to warfare. The psychological aspect of warfare was also important to him. For example, before Hamel, he embedded tanks with the infantry to overcome the distrust the infantry had of them because of their earlier failures in action. He held the view that war was a problem of engineering and mobilizing resources, much like an industrial undertaking. His administrative skills were such that Albert Jacka, who won Australia's first Victoria Cross of the war, said of Monash, "The men went into action knowing that whatever might be ahead, everything would be right behind them. He eagerly used the newest innovations and was really part of a new breed of scientific generals. His weaknesses, such as they were his hunger for status and his habit of exaggerating both his and his men's achievements. Monash's homecoming to Australia was effectively ruined by his wife's illness. She died in February 1920. He himself worked in several prominent civilian positions and also served as Vice Chancellor of the University of Melbourne from 1923 until his death from a heart attack in October 1931. Some 300,000 mourners came to pay their respects to their hero, whose tombstone simply bore the words, John Monash. We'd like to thank Aaron.
It's fascinating. It really is fascinating. And it shows different types of leadership, I think. It really does show different types of leadership. You get generals that are on the battlefield leading from the front. They're the normal. I would say they're normally the less intelligent. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going to use it, the less intelligent type of general. And then you get the ones that sit back and plan everything to a T and make sure everything is well thought out. I don't know what that effect has on the front line, knowing that your leader is not with you. He is leaving it to you. Or you could think, well, actually, our leader has thought everything out. We're in the best possible position because of the tactical knowledge that he is given. I don't know. I'm not sure which I would prefer. If I was in a war situation, would I want my leader on the battlefield with me? I think I probably would. It's a tough one, really. He's clearly such an intelligent man. As I said, I think that the engineering and the military side of things links so well because it is helping him have that knowledge and that tactical thinking. Because that's what you need as a general, as a leader. You need the tactical knowledge to look a few steps ahead and plan things well. I'm not sure the fact that this guy said, well, if he realised that his plan wasn't going to be achieved the way that he planned it, he would just scrap it all together. That seems strange because sometimes you need that flexibility. But he clearly had people realising how good he was. You know, he got knighted by King George, and other generals praised him. So, an interesting character. He did a lot. He seemed to go up in the ranks very quickly. What are your thoughts on John Monash? Do you think he is a great person, a great leader, a great general? What do you think about him? Please let me know down in the comments. That ends the characters on all of the Australian banknotes. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.